All right. Last story. This is the hardest one because this is the one where you get accused of being insensitive and not caring. And how can you be so cold and so heartless that you would let babies die? Let me explain. Jimmy Kimmel just had a beautiful baby. And when he was at the hospital, the baby was born. They thought everything was fine. But then a few hours later, the baby was looking a little purple. And it turns out that the baby had some heart valve problems where the heart valves were open and blood was not flowing the way it should. And they had to race the baby to a different hospital where it went into emergency surgery and they were able to fix the problem. And Kimball gave this very tear-filled, emotional talk about what he and his wife and his new baby went through. And you cannot help but feel terrible, especially if you're a parent. And the hard thing is that you don't really understand love, the kind of love that you have for children. I mean, I love my wife deeply. And I love my brother and sister, and I love my mom. But the love that you have for children is different. And I don't know how to explain it. But it is just a different kind of emotion when you realize that this person that you're responsible for. You created them and you are responsible for them. Do you feel the same way, Darren?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can't explain it to you.
I know exactly what you're talking
if you don't have children, I can't explain it to you. But if you do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I am watching him tell this story while they throw up a picture of I think it was his son, who's got wires and tubes running through his body, and he's breaking down when he's telling the story. And I felt for him. I pictured my own children in that environment, and I really understood where he was coming from. And he was just very, 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 very grateful for the doctors, for the nurses who helped and who attended to his child, and the baby's okay. Baby's going to be fine. And at the end of it, Kimmel urged viewers to donate to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and to help other kids with serious health conditions. He mentioned looking around and seeing all of the other parents who were there, and he said, I met a lot of people, and he said no one should have to be worried about how they're going to pay to save their son or daughter's life. No one should have to worry about that. And so he also made a plea for politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, to make sure that all Americans have access to medical care, especially those with pre-existing health conditions. And the argument now becomes, what obligation do you have as a citizen to providing for someone else? And the problem with the argument that he's making, because the first issue of donating to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, I love that idea. I think that is a beautiful way to be charitable and to show how much you really care for the people who are going through this. The second part of this, where we talk about politicians, is lip service. It's what people do when they don't really want to give their own money, but they want to feel good about themselves. It's a way to sell out and not actually have to do anything, not have to open your wallet up, not actually have to contribute, not to watch the money transfer from your bank account to someone else's bank account, but you get to feel good because you supported somebody else doing something about it. That's what the government version of providing health care is. And that's what I disagree with. Because the truth is, I don't think any parent should have to choose whether or not they can afford to pay for their son's emergency heart surgery or whether they should just let him die. That's not really an issue that we have to deal with in America today, because the hospitals will take you even if you can't pay. But let's assume that they couldn't. If it is somebody else's responsibility, if someone else can be forced to provide for your son or daughter's care, what else can we force them to do? I mean, what about kids that don't get enough to eat? What about kids who don't have a decent home to live in? When I went to the Marines, I went to Marines with a guy who lived out on a farm in southwest Kansas, or central Kansas, excuse me, and literally still had an outhouse. I mean, they were, when you say dirt poor, like dirt floor poor, these folks were dirt floor poor. When I was going to high school, there was a guy in Dodge City that I knew who, you go to his house and they ate not off of plates, they ate off of hubcaps. I'm not kidding you. There is some serious poverty in certain places. And the question is, what obligation do you have to those people? Do those children deserve clean clothes? I think about my daughter, and I gave her my daughter had to have a bath last night and I thought to myself, what about kids who can't have a bath? Don't every kid deserve to have a bath? Don't they deserve to have a clean bed to sleep in? Don't they deserve to have clean clothes to wear so they don't have to feel insecure? Where does it stop? Where does my responsibility to your child end? The truth is, it should end wherever I say it ends. That if I have a moral conviction and I feel a sense of responsibility to help you and your child during your time of need, then I should do what I feel is necessary. I should give to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. I should go to the family that needs my help and say, yes, I'll help you. I'll give you what I can. Maybe it's enough. Maybe you need to combine it with somebody else's stuff, but I will give you what I can. That's what charity is. And I know Jimmy, I don't know Jimmy, so maybe he doesn't, maybe he's a raving mad progressive. But I know what Jimmy was thinking. He was thinking very emotionally, and he can't imagine somebody else being in the position. Jimmy's worth $35 million. 35, 40 million, something like that. Makes $10 million a year. Jimmy could save a lot of kids whose parents can't afford to pay for heart surgery. He can pay for a lot of that. And I'm sure he does. I'm going to just assume that he does a lot gives a lot away to charity. And he may start a foundation, or he may give away a big chunk of his wealth because becomes a big enough deal for him. Your thing might not be helping kids with heart surgery. It might be making sure that single mothers have a place to raise their children that's not in a crack house. Yours might be taking kids who have trouble in school and working with them to try and make them productive members of society. Yours might be going to the jail or the prison and working with inmates so that when they get out, they got somewhere to go and there's some opportunity for them because they have a skill now. The point is, where you give your money, the charity that you choose to engage in is yours. It's your responsibility. You are the one who is going to have to stand at the end of your days and account for how you lived your life. And while we may look at some people and say, that's ridiculous, how dare you? I think of people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren talks about how terrible the rich are. She chastises them. She complains about them endlessly. Talks about how they're destroying America, how they don't pay their fair share in taxes. She's worth millions and millions of dollars. Bernie Sanders owns 3 homes. These are people who act like they care about the little guy, who dedicated their life, quote unquote, to helping the little guy, when in reality, they are the very essence of what they claim to despise. Charity is you reaching into your own pocket and giving of your own free will. That's the only way it works. It doesn't make you charitable. It doesn't make you generous to confiscate the wealth of someone else. It just makes you a thief. And it doesn't matter what good you use the money for. If you had to steal it to do it, number one, you didn't do anything nice. All you did was transfer money from one person to another. And we've got far too many people in this world who confuse theft with charity. That isn't capitalism. That's statism. It's totalitarianism. It's dictatorship. And capitalism, guys, is this, if I can kind of wrap this up, whatever you think about capitalism, for all of its flaws, and it has many, it is still the greatest system ever devised by man to lift people out of poverty. All the talk that you will hear from progressives, from socialists, from statists, whatever you want to call them, every idea that you will bring up, what they cannot do is they cannot defend that idea against capitalism because it has been tried. There is no greater system to lift people out of poverty, to provide more people more opportunity and more wealth than the capitalist system. If a new system is devised, I'm game for trying it. But what I reject are old ideas, ideas of consumption driving economies, ideas that if the state was just larger, if we just had more rules and more regulation, if we just transferred wealth from one person to another, that the world would be right. Those ideas have been tried. We know they fail. We know that they can't hold a candle to the opportunity and the wealth that can be generated and created from capitalism. That's why Elizabeth Warren won't come on this show. That's why most progressives won't even take a look at coming into this arena, because in the arena of ideas, we cannot be defeated. Thank you very much for being here today. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, be safe, be good. I'll talk to you then.